The year is 1453, and you find yourself in Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. Before you stretch the mighty Theodosian walls, an imposing barrier that has stood for over a millennium, protecting the city from invaders. But today, they are under siege. The Ottoman army, led by the ambitious Sultan Mehmed II, is determined to capture the city, and with it, control the eastern Mediterranean. As the sun rises over the Golden Horn, you witness the methodical bombardment of the Ottoman cannons. The air is thick with the smell of gunpowder, and the deafening roar of cannons shakes the very foundations of the city. For weeks, the Ottomans have been bombarding the walls, trying to break through, but so far without success. Meanwhile, inside the city, the situation is dire. Food and water are running low, and the threat of starvation looms over the citizens. The once proud and mighty empire has been reduced to a shadow of its former self, clinging desperately to existence. Amidst this bleak landscape, you spot a group of Byzantine soldiers readying themselves for battle. Among them is Emperor Constantine XI Palaeologos, the last emperor of the Byzantine Empire. He is a noble leader, determined to defend his city to the death. As the Ottomans launch a new wave of attack, you join the Byzantine soldiers in repelling the onslaught. The clash of steel on steel echoes through the streets, and the cries of the wounded mingle with the shouts of the combatants. Despite their smaller numbers, the Byzantines fight with the ferocity of cornered lions, each man determined to protect his home and hearth. With each passing day, the Ottoman attacks become more desperate. Yet their sheer numbers and relentless determination begin to take a toll on the exhausted defenders. As the sun sets over Constantinople, you witness the agony of the Byzantines. Their numbers are dwindling, and the Ottoman forces seem unstoppable. With the fate of the city hanging in the balance, the defenders prepare for one last stand. They know that if the Ottomans break through the walls, there will be no mercy shown. In the dead of night, as the moon casts an eerie glow over the city, the Ottomans make their final assault. The pressure on the walls intensifies, and the sound of breaking wood echoes through the darkness. With each blow, the defenders' hopes grow dimmer. As the first rays of dawn penetrate the gloom, the unthinkable happens. A section of the wall collapses, and the Ottoman troops surge through the breach. For the Byzantines, it is a devastating blow, the end of their 1,000-year-old empire. Now the full force of the Ottoman army pours through the broken gate, overwhelming the exhausted defenders. Emperor Constantine fights valiantly, but he is outnumbered and soon finds himself surrounded. With their emperor captured, the remaining Byzantines realize there is no hope of victory. They lay down their weapons and prepare for the worst. The capture of Constantinople marks the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of Ottoman rule in the eastern Mediterranean. The great libraries and churches are destroyed, and the city's treasures are looted. The survivors are left to pick up the pieces and try to rebuild their lives under the rule of their conquerors. Constantine XI watched as the breaches widened, threatening to engulf the entire city. He knew that if the Ottomans broke through, all hope would be lost. As the sun beat down on Constantinople, the heat seemed to intensify the desperation of the situation. The defenders, exhausted and outnumbered, held on to their positions, determined to protect their city until the very end. Every clang of steel echoed the struggle not only for land, but for the soul of the civilization. Yet despite the grim situation, a spirit of defiance ran through the city. In the homes, churches, and workshops of Constantinople, the people refused to bow to the Ottomans. The city was more than just a collection of bricks and mortar. It was a symbol of a way of life, a beacon of culture and faith. The people of Constantinople knew that if the city fell, much of the ancient world as they knew it would vanish with it. But even in the face of certain doom, the human spirit prevailed. Amidst the gloom, stories of courage and resistance emerged. Shopkeepers, merchants, and artisans picked up arms, joining the ranks of the city's defenders. Men of the cloth-donned armor, carrying their faith in one hand and a sword in the other. Women, unable to bear the thought of losing their homes, manned the barricades, standing side by side with men. Together, they formed an unlikely army, bound by a common purpose, determined to protect their homes and heritage. As days turned into weeks, the Ottomans became frustrated. They had underestimated the resilience of the defenders and the strength of the walls. Mehmed II, known for his strategic brilliance, found himself stymied by the tenacity of his opponents. His cannons roared, his troops charged, but the people of Constantinople held firm. Within the battered walls, hope flickered. Was this the moment when the unstoppable force would finally meet its match? Could the underdog prevail against all odds? As the siege dragged on, both sides suffered. The Ottomans, with their advanced weaponry, inflicted heavy casualties on the defenders. Still, the loss of life did not break the spirit of Constantinople. For the people of Constantinople, the fight was about more than just survival. It was about preserving their history, their faith, and their identity. They were not merely defending a city, they were safeguarding a civilization. In the face of defeat, the people of Constantinople refused to give up. Instead, they rallied together, drawing strength from their shared heritage and determination. And as the final battle loomed, the city became a crucible of courage, faith, and sacrifice. The looming shadow of the Ottoman Empire threatened to extinguish the flame of classical civilization forever. Would Constantinople go down in flames, taking with it the legacy of antiquity? Or would a miracle occur? In the heart of Constantinople, the last stand was being made. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, the fate of a civilization hung in the balance. The story of Constantinople is a testament to the human spirit, a tale of courage, resilience, and the unwavering pursuit of freedom in the face of overwhelming odds. Whether you love or hate the Byzantines, you have to admit one thing: they went out with a bang. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave us some feedback, and we'll see you next time. Emperor Constantine XI watched from the ramparts as another Ottoman assault was beaten back. Seeing his foe retreat, a flicker of hope sparked in his eyes. He knew that holding out was futile, but perhaps he could use this moment to strike back. Calling for a council, Constantine assembled his generals, his mind racing with a desperate plan. With the city on the verge of collapse, he proposed a daring counterattack. At first, his officers were skeptical, but as Constantine passionately explained his vision, they too began to see a slim chance of success. The next morning, as the Ottoman forces prepared for another assault, the Byzantines launched their surprise attack. Emerging from the safety of the city walls, they charged into the confusion of the battlefield. With the element of surprise on their side, they caused significant casualties among the Ottoman ranks. The Byzantines fought with the desperation of men who had nothing left to lose. Their counterattack caught the Ottomans off guard, driving them back from the walls of Constantinople. Although the relief force did not defeat the Ottoman army, they succeeded in inflicting heavy losses. They had proven that despite the odds, they could still fight. But the victory was short-lived. While the relief force had dealt a blow to Ottoman morale, the city's situation remained dire. Food and water were scarce, and the walls were still breached. The weeks that followed were a blur of cannon fire and desperate repairs. Each day brought new assaults. Each night brought new worries. Still, the people of Constantinople held on. They scavenged for food, shared what little water they had, and prayed for salvation. Despite the constant fear, there was a sense of unity among the citizens. The siege had stripped away the luxuries of life, revealing the strength and resilience of the human spirit. As the siege dragged on, the Ottomans grew increasingly frustrated. They had come to claim Constantinople, and they would not be denied. But the city's stubborn resistance continued to elude their grasp. Sultan Mehmed II, determined to end the stalemate, ordered a new tactic. Massive amounts of gunpowder were placed under the city's walls, creating explosions that shook the very foundations of Constantinople. The blasts blew open new breaches in the walls, allowing Ottoman troops to enter the city. The Byzantines, though valiant, were outnumbered and exhausted. The time had come for the Ottomans to make their final push. The sight that greeted them was heartbreaking. Homes were destroyed, streets were littered with debris, and the people of Constantinople looked up at their invaders with defiance in their eyes. But the Ottoman soldiers were relentless, pushed forward, determined to claim victory. And as the dust settled, it became clear that the defenders could not hold out much longer. They had fought bravely, but the siege had taken its toll. Their numbers were depleted, their resources were exhausted. The walls that had stood for centuries were crumbling before their eyes, and with each passing hour, the weight of defeat pressed down on them. Then, as the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the battered city, the inevitable happened. The last stand of the defenders ended. Constantine XI, true to his word, had fought to the very end, but the Ottomans had claimed the prize they had sought for so long. As the news spread that Constantinople had fallen, a stunned silence fell over the city. The people who had endured so much looked upon their destroyed homes and desolated streets. The city, once a beacon of Eastern Roman glory, was now under Ottoman rule. The echoes of the siege lingered in the air, a stark reminder of the city's fall. But amidst the ruins, there was also a sense of somber pride. The people of Constantinople had faced their fate with courage, unity, and dignity. The sack of the city was brutal and merciless. The Ottoman soldiers, who had waited centuries for this moment, went on a rampage, pillaging and plundering everything in sight. Churches were desecrated, homes were looted, and the people of Constantinople were subjected to unspeakable atrocities. The Byzantine aristocracy, who had once enjoyed wealth and power, were executed or enslaved. Amidst the horror, there were also moments of humanity. Some Ottoman soldiers, despite the fervor of conquest, showed restraint. They spared the lives of civilians and clergy, offering them protection from their fellow conquerors. Yet for the majority of the citizens, there was no respite from the violence. The siege and sack of Constantinople marked not only the end of a city, but also the close of an era. The fall of Constantinople was a pivotal moment in history, a turning point that signaled the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of the Ottoman era in the East. The sack of the city left an indelible scar on the survivors, many of whom fled to Western Europe, carrying with them tales of the atrocities they had witnessed. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 is a haunting reminder of the brutality of war and the resilience of the human spirit. The siege and sack of Constantinople by the Ottomans led to profound consequences for world history. It marked the decline of the Byzantine Empire, ending the Eastern Roman Empire that had endured for over 1,000 years. The capture of Constantinople also signified the rise of Ottoman power, establishing them as a major force in world politics. The fall of the city had a significant impact on trade routes, shifting commercial activity away from the Mediterranean and towards the Atlantic, contributing to the rise of maritime empires. Moreover, the sack of Constantinople led to cultural exchanges between the East and West, as Byzantine scholars and artists fled to Italy, influencing Western Renaissance art and learning. Finally, the conquest of Constantinople by the Ottomans intensified religious tensions between Christianity and Islam, marking a turning point in the relationship between the two faiths. The fall of Constantinople remains a pivotal event in world history, shaping the course of empires, trade, and religious dynamics for centuries to come. The relentless Ottoman attacks continued day after day, testing the limits of the beleaguered defenders' endurance. Yet amidst the chaos and destruction, an unexpected development began to unfold. Rumors spread like wildfire through the streets of Constantinople, whispers of an impending breakthrough in the siege. The source of this unsettling news was none other than the emperor himself, Constantine XI Palaiologos. Haunted by visions of his ancestors' demise, Constantine realized that the situation was dire. The Ottoman forces, led by the cunning Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror, had managed to breach the Theodosian walls in several places. The mighty bulwarks of the city, once considered impregnable, were crumbling under the onslaught of cannon fire and human determination. The scale of the disaster was immense. Homes and shops were destroyed, leaving thousands of citizens homeless, and the city's economy in tatters. The invaders, known for their ruthless efficiency, had meticulously planned their assault, utilizing advanced weaponry and battle tactics. But it was their psychological warfare that proved particularly effective. The Ottoman commanders understood the importance of demoralizing the enemy. They deliberately targeted areas housing civilians, hoping to evoke fear and uncertainty within the city's walls. Little did they know that they had underestimated the resilience of the human spirit. The people of Constantinople, although terrified and exhausted, refused to surrender. They rallied together, drawing strength from their shared heritage and unshakable faith. Yet the reality of their fate loomed large. The city's warehouses were bare, its granaries depleted, and starvation threatened to weaken their resistance. The pleas for assistance sent to the west had gone unanswered, leaving the Byzantines to fend for themselves against the relentless tide of invaders. As the siege dragged on, tensions within the city escalated. Whispers of discontent began to surface, challenging the emperor's leadership and the nobility's role in the crisis. Some questioned the strategies employed, wondering if a decisive strike against the Ottomans could turn the tide of battle. Others criticized the ruling class, accusing them of hoarding resources and abandoning the common folk in their hour of need. The seeds of doubt were sown, threatening to undermine the unity that held the city together. Amidst this maelstrom of emotions, Constantine XI found himself at a critical crossroads. The fate of his empire, nay, of Christendom itself, seemed to hang in the balance. The once proud capital was on the verge of collapse. The emperor's every decision carried the weight of countless lives. But amidst the mounting pressures, Constantine drew strength from the most unexpected of sources, the Janissaries. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the emperor summoned the city's elite military force, the Janissaries known for their unwavering loyalty and martial prowess. He addressed them, his voice echoing with the determination that had become his trademark. "We are outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded," he acknowledged, his gaze steady and resolute. "But we are not without hope. We will fight to the death, and in our sacrifice, find redemption." His words ignited a spark of defiance in their eyes. The Janissaries, bound by their oath to defend Constantinople, pledged their undying loyalty to the emperor and the city. United in their determination, Constantine and the Janissaries formulated a plan. They would make a last stand at the Church of the Holy Apostles, a strategic location at the heart of the city. Here, amidst the echoes of past victories, they would confront the Ottomans, buying precious time for the rest of the city's defenders to escape. Thus, with the fate of Constantinople hanging in the balance, Constantine XI and his Janissary forces prepared for the ultimate showdown with the invading Ottoman army. The stage was set for a battle that would become a defining moment in history. And as the sun rose over the horizon, casting long shadows over the city, the defenders took their positions, ready to face their destiny. Little did they know that the clash that awaited them would be nothing short of epic. Now let's get back to the video. The sun beat down on the ruined cityscape, baking the stones until they radiated the heat back into the cloudless sky. The stench of decay hung heavy, mingling with the dust kicked up by the wind, and the cries of gulls wheeling overhead. It was the kind of day that sapped the will to fight, the kind of day that whispered surrender in the ears of the weary. But here at the Lion Gate, defiance still roared. The defenders, though battered, bruised, and starved, clung to the remnants of the wall, as if it were a lifeline. Inside the beleaguered city, Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos paced restlessly. Each day the siege relentlessly chipped away at their defenses. The constant cannon fire was not just a cacophony of destruction, it was a hammer blow to the morale of his troops. 2 months ago, they had been ready to meet the Ottoman onslaught head-on, their spirits bolstered by centuries of unwavering defense. But now, staring into the abyss of their inevitable defeat, their resolve was starting to crack. Constantine was no stranger to the art of war. In fact, his strategy had brought the Byzantines to the brink of victory against the Ottomans several times. But this time, it was different. This time, the enemy was too strong, their resources too vast. A messenger stumbled into the makeshift command center, his armor dented and dusty. "Emperor," he gasped, catching his breath. "Word from the Lion Gate. The Turks are regrouping, readying for another assault." Constantine's jaw tightened. Another assault. How many assaults had the Ottomans launched? How many valiant stands had his men made? And yet as the sun set each night, the city's defenses grew weaker, its hopes dwindling like the rations in their stores. At this rate, the Ottomans would breach the walls within a fortnight. And when they did, Constantine knew he wouldn't survive. But neither would his city, not if he allowed this siege to drag on. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the gloom, Constantine made his decision. He summoned his council, the weathered faces of his generals etched with fatigue and worry, mirroring the state of the city. "We cannot hold out much longer," he began, his voice echoing the grim reality of their situation. "Our provisions are low, our people starving. We need a miracle, or we must resort to Plan Omega." A collective gasp swept through the room. Plan Omega was their last resort, a dangerous gambit to break out of the siege and rally the countryside to their cause. But it was risky, bordering on the edge of insanity. But as Constantine looked out over the ravaged city, he saw no other option. Outside the walls, the Ottomans were readying themselves for the final assault. Their massive cannons were trained on the remaining breaches, and the Janissaries were preparing to storm the gates. Little did they know that fate had taken an unexpected turn. A small band of Byzantine soldiers had slipped past the Ottoman lines and were racing toward the countryside. Their mission? Deliver the message of the Byzantine Emperor begging for help. As the Ottoman army prepared for the last assault, Byzantine soldiers led by General Belisarius burst through the breaches in the wall. They fought like cornered wolves, vicious and desperate. But despite their valiant efforts, they were hopelessly outnumbered. At the Lion Gate, Constantine fought alongside his men, his sword flashing in the sunlight as he hacked his way through the Ottoman ranks. But even as he fought, he knew it was futile. The Ottomans were relentless, and their numbers seemed endless. Finally, as the gate began to buckle under the relentless assault, Constantine knew it was time. He turned to his horse, climbed aboard and shouted, "For the Empire," and rode toward the breach. His council, seeing the futility of staying any longer, had already fled, leaving the emperor to his fate. Riding through the breach, Constantine emerged into the open field, his horse rearing up in alarm as he urged it forward. He rode hard, knowing full well this was an almost suicidal mission. He was buying time, precious time, for his messengers to reach the countryside and rally help. Behind him, the roar of the battle intensified. The Ottomans were pouring through the breach, their shouts of victory echoing across the field. Constantine knew he had only minutes before his pursuers arrived. Glancing back, he saw the Ottoman soldiers streaming out of the gate, their numbers growing by the second. Up ahead, he could see the road leading to the countryside, a ribbon of hope snaking into the distance. With a final surge of speed, Constantine and his horse raced toward the road, the fate of the Byzantine Empire resting on their backs. But the Ottomans were fast, too fast for the Byzantines. In a heartbeat, the Turks were upon them. Constantine, with a last burst of adrenaline, threw himself off his horse and disappeared into the trees lining the road. The Ottomans were at their throats, their cheers of victory shaking the very foundations of the Byzantine Empire. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield, Constantine, battered and bruised, stumbled out of the forest. He was alone. His pursuers had given up the chase, but so had the rest of the Byzantine army. They had lost, and there was no one to greet him except a small group of peasants who stared at him in awe. With a sigh, Constantine sank to his knees, the weight of his defeat crushing him. The Byzantine Empire, the jewel of the Eastern Roman world, was no more. All around him, the dying embers of the empire glowed in the twilight, a somber reminder of the glory that had been and the ashes that remained. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we'll be exploring the grim fate of the defenders of Constantinople, as portrayed in the famous painting, The Death of the Bulgarian Tsar Kaloyan, by an unknown artist from 1468. This haunting image captures a pivotal moment in history when the Bulgarian Tsar faced his mortal end. But what led to this tragic fate? And how does the artwork depict the events surrounding the Tsar's demise? Join us as we delve into the story behind the painting, uncovering the historical events that unfolded during the siege of Constantinople. Let's start. It's important to note that there is some debate regarding the identity of the Bulgarian Tsar depicted in the painting. Some historians believe that it portrays Tsar Kaloyan, who indeed met his demise during the siege of Constantinople. However, others argue that the figure is not Kaloyan, but a composite representation of various fallen Byzantine leaders. Regardless of the exact identity of the individual portrayed, the painting offers a powerful glimpse into the human cost of war and the struggles faced by the defenders of Constantinople during that fateful siege. The artist, unknown, has created a dramatic and emotionally charged composition. The central focus is the fallen Tsar, his head resting on a stone base, his armor discarded nearby. The image of the fallen monarch evokes a sense of tragedy and despair, emphasizing the weight of his sacrifice and the devastation of war. The scene is not one of a glorious battlefield, but of a brutal and unforgiving reality. The wounded soldiers and the dead strewn across the ground serve as a reminder of the immense suffering endured by the defenders of Constantinople. Despite their bravery and determination, they were ultimately overwhelmed by the attacking forces. The inclusion of foreign fighters in the artwork adds another layer of complexity to the narrative. The presence of men of different nationalities united in their struggle against a common enemy highlights the international character of the siege. The defenders of Constantinople came from various regions, each contributing their unique skills and courage to the defense of the city. Their diversity is a testament to the cosmopolitan nature of Constantinople, which had long been a hub of international trade and cultural exchange. The overall impact of the painting is one of sorrow and defeat. The fallen soldiers, including the distinguished officers, are a stark reminder of the heavy toll exacted by war. Their shattered weapons and abandoned equipment lie scattered around them, symbolizing the futility of their efforts. The siege of Constantinople was a desperate struggle, and the defenders' ultimate defeat is poignantly depicted in this artwork. Looking closely at the details of the painting, we can see a number of fascinating elements that bring the scene to life. The portrayal of the foreign fighters, such as the German and Hungarian men, adds an interesting dimension to the artwork. Reflects the multinational character of the defenders of Constantinople, came from various kingdoms and duchies across Europe. The presence of these foreign soldiers highlights the international aspect of the siege, showcasing how it was not merely a local conflict, but part of a broader struggle between the forces of Christendom and the advancing Ottomans. These men fought shoulder to shoulder with the Byzantines, forming a diverse and united force in defense of the city. Furthermore, the artist has masterfully depicted the physical and emotional toll that the siege took on the defenders. The wounded soldier with his arm resting on a spear serves as a powerful symbol of their suffering. The depiction of exhaustion, weariness, and despair in their eyes reveals the mental anguish and fatigue they endured throughout the siege. These details humanize the defenders, making them relatable and evoking empathy from the viewer. They remind us that behind the historical accounts of the siege, there were real people who endured immense hardship and loss. However, the painting does not solely focus on the suffering of the defenders. It also provides glimpses of their bravery, determination, and camaraderie. The officer encouraging his comrades with a raised hand embodies their refusal to give up. Despite the overwhelming odds, these men fought valiantly to defend their positions and protect the city they called home. The sense of unity and support among the defenders is palpable, highlighting the strength that comes from standing together in the face of adversity. The presence of the cross held by one of the soldiers signifies the role of religion in their lives. For the defenders, their faith provided them with solace, strength, and a sense of purpose during these dark times. It reminds us that the siege of Constantinople was not only a military conflict, but also a battle between opposing ideologies and worldviews. The artist's choice of composition and lighting further enhances the dramatic impact of the painting. The diagonal placement of figures and the use of strong contrasts create a sense of movement and tension. The play of light and shadow adds depth and drama to the scene, emphasizing the weight of the moment. The inclusion of architectural elements such as the column and archway in the background provides a sense of place, grounding the action within the context of the siege. These elements also serve as a reminder of the grandeur and importance of Constantinople, a city whose fall had profound implications for history. Overall, the painting The Death of the Bulgarian Tsar Kaloyan is a remarkable work of art that encapsulates the tragedy, heroism, and historical significance of the siege of Constantinople. It invites viewers to contemplate the human cost of war and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Through its powerful imagery and masterful execution, the painting immortalizes the fallen defenders of Constantinople, ensuring that their sacrifice is remembered for generations to come. And that's it for today's video. We hope you enjoyed learning about the fascinating history behind the painting The Death of the Bulgarian Tsar Kaloyan. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more exciting historical tales. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Hi everyone, number 403. Today we will see how Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror transformed Constantinople into the jewel of the Ottoman Empire. Make sure to watch till the end to find out. Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror, the man whose name would echo through history as the breaker of empires, had secured the city of Constantinople as his capital. But the victory celebrations were cut short by the daunting task ahead of him. The city he now possessed lay in ruins, a shadow of its former self, its glory tarnished by the grime of war. The streets were littered with debris, the buildings were damaged, and the population decimated. It was a far cry from being the jewel of the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire, yet Mehmed II had a vision for the city. He saw beyond the rubble, envisioning a grand metropolis that would serve as the beating heart of his growing empire. He envisioned a city that would not only be a testament to his military prowess, but also a symbol of the cultural fusion that defined his empire. A place where the old world met the new, where East met West, and where Christianity and Islam coexisted. Amongst the piles of debris and despair, Sultan Mehmed sowed the seeds of his grand vision. His first order of business was to address the pressing issue of the city's dwindling population. Mehmed II knew that to rebuild a city, he needed its people. Thus began the resettlement of Constantinople. People from across his empire, from the Balkans to Anatolia, the Arabian Peninsula to the Caucasus, started to pour into the city. Soldiers who had fought in the conquest, artisans and craftsmen, as well as administrators and scholars arrived, bringing with them the rich tapestry of cultures that were the hallmark of the Ottoman Empire. But Mehmed II didn't stop there. He reached out further, inviting Jewish, Greek, and Armenian communities to resettle in the city. This infusion of diverse cultures created a melting pot of civilizations, each contributing to the city's unique character. As the people moved in and started to rebuild their lives, Sultan Mehmed turned his attention to the city's infrastructure. Rebuilding roads, bridges, and public buildings was essential to creating the bustling metropolis he envisioned. But it was also about more than just infrastructure. It was about restoring a sense of normalcy and hope to a city that had endured so much. Markets were established, shops opened, and the sounds of commerce returned to the streets of Constantinople. With the city's economic engine back in motion, the Sultan's vision began to take shape. But the crowning jewel of his urban renewal project was the Hagia Sophia, his grand cathedral, once the largest and most important Christian cathedral in the world, now stood as a symbol of the city's past. Mehmed the Conqueror decided to convert it into a mosque, thus making a powerful statement about the changing times. The interior was dramatically transformed, with Christian icons and mosaics being removed or covered up and replaced with Islamic calligraphy and motifs. The addition of a mihrab, or prayer niche, and for towering minarets, completed the transformation, turning a once Christian place of worship into a majestic mosque that would serve as the city's spiritual center. Yet even as the Hagia Sophia was being converted, Sultan Mehmed looked to the future, planning for the city's next chapter. In fact, one of the most significant aspects of Mehmed's reign was his commitment to education and scholarship. He established schools and universities, fostering an environment where ideas and knowledge could flourish. Historians from around the world flocked to the city, drawn by its reputation as a center of learning and research. This intellectual ferment contributed significantly to the city's cultural vibrancy. It was a city of magnificent mosques, bustling markets, and above all, a city of cultural fusion. The Ottomans had taken the mantle of empire, ushering in a new era for Constantinople. They had reshaped the city's skyline, diversified its population, and transformed its very essence. The fall of Constantinople, once a symbol of loss and destruction, was now seen as a pivotal moment in history, marking the beginning of a new world order. The city, now known as Istanbul, had become the jewel of the Ottoman Empire, radiating beauty, wealth, and power. And so, the story of Constantinople came full circle, from its legendary founding to its fall and rebirth. It was a city that had defied the odds, surviving countless sieges, only to fall not to external forces but to the ambitions of its own ruler, Mehmed the Conqueror. From the ashes of that fall, a new empire and a new era arose, forever changing the course of history. What did you find most interesting about the fall of Constantinople? Tell us in the comments. Also, like the video if you enjoyed watching it. See you next time. The year 1453 AD, the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire has been crumbling for centuries. Weakened by internal strife and external threats, its survival now hangs by a thread. And the last bastion of this once mighty empire is the city of Constantinople, home to the magnificent Hagia Sophia and a city steeped in nearly 2,000 years of history. All seems lost when a new force arrives on the scene. No, it's not the fabled Crusaders come to save the day. Instead, it is the Ottoman Turks led by the ambitious Sultan Mehmed II. With modern military technology and tactics, the Ottomans lay siege to the city. And as the weeks drag on, hope for the Byzantines fades. Finally, on May 29, 1453, Ottoman troops breach the city walls and Constantinople falls. The 1,000-year-old Roman Empire has ended. But let's rewind a bit. Imagine you are a resident of Constantinople. The Ottoman presence has been felt for some time, and whispers of an impending siege have been circulating for months. You watch nervously as the Ottomans establish a military camp across the Golden Horn, just a stone's throw away from the city's bustling port. Then the unthinkable happens. The Ottomans launch their attack. Cannons roar, shattering the peace that once defined your city. The streets, once filled with the murmur of daily life, now echo with the sounds of battle. Fear grips the city like a shroud as the full force of the Ottoman assault becomes clear. As days turn into weeks, the citizens of Constantinople endure hardship and deprivation, all the while clinging to the hope of deliverance. But as the city's defenses weaken, so does their resolve. Hunger and despair take their toll, making the decision to flee increasingly tempting. Many families decide to abandon ship, leaving the city in the hopes of finding safety elsewhere. However, not everyone shares this desperate outlook. Among the populace, a group of defiant citizens, led by the determined Emperor Constantine XI, choose to stay. They stand firm, ready to defend their homes and their way of life to the very end. And then it happens. The walls of Constantinople, once thought impenetrable, are breached. Panic ensues as the Ottoman soldiers pour into the city. The grand streets of Constantinople, which had echoed with the footsteps of emperors and the murmur of merchants, now resound with the clash of steel and the cries of battle. Homes and businesses are ransacked, and the scent of fear and desperation permeates the air. Emperor Constantine, true to his word, fights valiantly against overwhelming odds. But even his bravery cannot alter the course of events. And as the shadow of defeat looms, he makes a fateful decision. Rather than surrender and face an uncertain fate, he chooses to die with honor. The last defenders fall, and the 1,000-year-old Roman Empire, which had withstood countless sieges and invasions, is extinguished. The legacy of Rome, which had stretched from the shores of the Atlantic to the edges of the Eastern Sea, ends here in the dust and ashes of Constantinople. The fall of Constantinople is not just a historical event. It is a pivotal moment that reshaped the course of history. It marked the end of the medieval era and the beginning of the modern age, leaving an indelible mark on the world. In the aftermath of the fall of Constantinople, the cultural landscape of the city underwent a dramatic transformation. The victorious Ottomans, under the reign of Sultan Mehmed II, introduced sweeping changes that reshaped the city's religious, social, and architectural character. One of the most iconic symbols of this transformation was the Hagia Sophia, the magnificent cathedral that had been the crown jewel of the Byzantine Empire. After the conquest, Sultan Mehmed II converted the church into a mosque, symbolizing the shift in power from the Byzantines to the Ottomans. This act served as a powerful reminder of the empire's transformation and the changing times. The cultural shift was not limited to the city's religious institutions. The Ottoman Empire was known for its religious tolerance. Sultan Mehmed II encouraged the coexistence of different faiths within his realm. Despite the conversion of Hagia Sophia into a mosque, the Ottomans respected the city's Christian heritage and allowed churches and monasteries to continue functioning. This policy of religious tolerance created a unique cultural environment in Constantinople, fostering an atmosphere of coexistence and mutual respect among various religious communities. In the centuries that followed, Constantinople, now known as Istanbul, would become a hub of cultural exchange, attracting scholars and travelers from across the world. The city's rich cultural heritage, shaped by its Byzantine and Ottoman past, would continue to evolve, leaving an enduring legacy on the global stage. In conclusion, the fall of Constantinople marked more than just the end of an empire. It was a pivotal moment that reshaped the course of history. From the cultural transformation of the city to the rise of the Ottoman Empire, The consequences of this event reverberated across the medieval world and beyond. The fall of Constantinople serves as a reminder of the impermanence of civilizations and the relentless march of time. Yet it also stands as a testament to the human spirit's capacity for resilience and adaptation in the face of adversity. As we reflect on this historic event, we're reminded of the interconnectedness of our world and the profound impact that seemingly distant moments in history can have on our present and future. A great city had fallen, but its story was far from over. For within its fallen grandeur, the seeds of a new era were already being sown. The Ottomans had triumphed, yet as they reveled in their victory, the echoes of the past still resonated through the shattered streets of Constantinople. The clash of cultures, the fusion of traditions, the blending of languages, all bore witness to the city's enduring spirit. The Hagia Sophia, once a symbol of Christian might, now stood as a testament to Ottoman power. Its magnificent dome, a beacon of architectural brilliance, echoed with the prayers of those who had once worshipped within its hallowed halls. As the muezzin called to prayer, the faithful gathered not just from the ranks of Islam, but from various corners of the empire, each bringing with them their own traditions and beliefs. Within these sacred walls, Christianity's fading chants mingled with the rising call to prayer, creating a symphony of faiths that was unique to this city. But beyond the walls of the Hagia Sophia, life was changing. Trade routes shifted, new communities arose, and the very fabric of the city was being restitched. The cosmopolitan character of Constantinople had always been its strength, and now that diversity took on a new dimension. Merchants from Venice and Genoa, along with those from the distant lands of India and China, found themselves sharing the bazaars with Arab traders and local artisans. The streets bustled not just with goods, but with the exchange of ideas, customs, and stories. It was a vibrant tapestry of humanity. Yet amidst this transformation, the memory of the past refused to be erased. In the bustling city, the echoes of the Roman and Byzantine eras lingered. The ghosts of emperors and saints seemed to walk among the living, their presence felt in the ruins of the Hippodrome, the crumbling aqueducts, and the remnants of the city's ancient walls. The library at Sultan Ahmed, a treasure trove of ancient texts, was a silent testament to a bygone era, its shelves holding the wisdom of Alexandria and the secrets of the classical world. As the sun set over the Golden Horn, casting long shadows across the city, the minarets of mosques stood tall against the darkening sky. The crescent moon, a symbol of the Ottoman Empire, now shone over a city that had once been a bastion of Christianity. The call to prayer echoed through the streets, inviting people of different backgrounds to come together and worship. Despite the challenges and uncertainties, life in Constantinople, now known as Istanbul, went on. Families gathered in their homes, sharing stories and laughter despite the hardships they had endured. Children played in the streets, their games echoing with the joy of innocence amid the remnants of war. Communities came together in the face of adversity, their bonds strengthened by shared experiences. Mosques, churches, and synagogues, symbols of different faiths, stood side by side, offering solace and refuge. Places of worship became centers of community, providing not just spiritual guidance, but also material aid and emotional support. Faith, in all its forms, became a source of strength and resilience. Amidst the physical scars left by the siege, the city's spirit remained unbroken. The people of Constantinople, a blend of diverse cultures, ethnicities, and religions, began the arduous task of rebuilding their lives and their city. They cleared the debris from the streets, pieced together shattered homes, and tended to the wounds of their city. The spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation emerged as people adapted to the changing circumstances and sought to improve their lives. The city, once a symbol of Christian supremacy, now stood as a testament to the changing tides of power. The Hagia Sophia, a masterpiece of Byzantine architecture, had become a mosque. Its majestic dome, once a symbol of divine light, now echoed with the rhythmic prayers of Muslims. The triumph of Islam over Christianity was not just a political conquest, but a profound shift in the religious landscape. Within the city's walls, a new era had dawned. The Ottomans, hailing from the steppes of Central Asia, had brought with them their distinct language, customs, and traditions. But as they settled in Constantinople, they encountered a rich cultural heritage that was the legacy of Rome and Byzantium. This fusion of cultures gave rise to a unique Ottoman identity, one that was shaped by the city's past and enriched by its diversity. Constantinople was more than a city, it was a crucible of cultures, a place where the old and the new, the east and the west, converged in an intricate dance of exchange and adaptation. As the centuries passed, the city's character continued to evolve. The influx of new residents from various parts of the Ottoman Empire brought with it a multitude of dialects, customs, and beliefs. The streets of Constantinople became a melting pot of cultures, where the lilting Arabic of merchants from Damascus mingled with the lilting Italian of Venetian traders and the melodic Turkish of nomadic tribes from the Anatolian plains. The sounds of distant lands resonated within the city's walls, creating a rich soundscape that was as diverse as the city's population. Amidst this cultural kaleidoscope, the city's architecture became a canvas for the merging of artistic traditions. The graceful minarets of mosques rose alongside the sturdy domes of churches, forming a skyline that symbolized the city's multifaceted identity. Each structure, whether a house of worship or a secular building, bore witness to the evolving tastes and influences that shaped Constantinople. Through it all, the spirit of Constantinople endured. The people of the city, regardless of their background or faith, shared a common identity as citizens of a great metropolis. They celebrated the city's triumphs, mourned its losses, and toiled to ensure its prosperity. Their lives, hopes, and dreams were intertwined with the fate of the city. The fall of Constantinople marked a turning point in history, a moment when empires shifted and new horizons beckoned. Yet within the heart of the fallen city, the embers of its past refused to be extinguished. From the Hagia Sophia to the bustling bazaars, the spirit of Constantinople lived on. Its story is a testament to the enduring power of legacy and the echoes of the past that resonate through time.